Good evening, Bulldogs, and welcome to our second episode of Front Row at Drake. My name is Andy Verlengen. I am a 2002 graduate serving as the Director of Alumni Relations. For this episode of Front Row at Drake, I'm excited to bring you a conversation I moderated with two of Drake's most prominent and successful alums, Jonathan Azu and Louis Carr. Jonathan is a 1999 Drake graduate, two-time Billboard 40 Under 40 power player, and the founder of Culture Collective. Louis is a 1978 graduate, president of media sales for BET Networks, entrepreneur, and author. Jonathan and Louis met when their music industry career paths crossed and became fast friends, collaborators, and mentors. The conversation you're about to see aired during our most recent Let's Do Lunch virtual event. For those who aren't familiar with Let's Do Lunch, it's an alumni networking event featuring interesting and inspiring speakers and providing a platform for our alumni to learn and connect. For all of our students that are listening, I hope that this talk not only inspires you, but serves as an example of how a Drake degree propels and serves you for the rest of your life. Take a look.
Hello, Louis.
Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So it's interesting because when I graduated from Drake, I knew who you were, but you didn't know who I was. And after spending a couple years in St. Louis, which is where I grew up, I found myself in an opportunity working in New York in Times Square at 1515 Broadway. You're based out of Chicago and New York, but I thought you worked out of Chicago. I had no clue you had an office in New York. And lo and behold, we're sharing a floor with each other, our offices in Times Square. And I find out that you have an office there. And that's where it all began. That's probably where you pick it up, but I knew of you way, way before then. And if I would have known where you worked, I'd probably be working for you right now. but there's still tomorrow, right?
well, John, let's just be honest. I tried to get you to work for me when I first met you. I met Jonathan right after Viacom had purchased BET in the early 2000s, and we moved into the Viacom building, and that was under the leadership of Mel Karmazan, the iconic media mogul at that particular time. And as soon as I met Jonathan, realized he was a Drake grad. And I think within months, I was like, why don't you come over here and work for us, all right? And he turned me down. I think I tried twice, and he turned me down twice. So we just decided to be friends and collaborators on a lot of different projects since then.
Yeah, and the most important thing to me, because I was young and kind of, I always say I was kind of, sitting there in New York, just a Midwest kid, and trying to figure it all out. And I remember sitting in your office and having a conversation, and you left it with, if you ever need anything, just reach out. Just connect. And that was so many years ago, and you stayed true to that statement. And it means the world to me. I've learned so much from you over the years. And I always tell when I'm talking to students and young people in my office, I always talk about the mentors you have in your life often stay with you, and you've been this common denominator across my career path as I've gone. And it all started at Drake University. That's the connection point. So I figured we'd just get into a little bit of what it is that you do, and I'll talk a little bit about the world that I'm in. And we've obviously crossed paths a few times over the years, but it would be great just to hear a little bit about your world at BET, and then I know you've got a bunch of other things going on as well.
I've been blessed to have been at BET over 3 decades, which has allowed me to learn so much about so many facets of the media and communication business. Everything from ad sales to production to PR to scheduling to programming to relationships with some of your superstar clients and everything else. Has just been a tremendous opportunity. So one of the things that I learned at Drake was the importance of relationships and understanding how they can sort of impact you for the rest of your life. And learning that at Drake, being an athlete at Drake has really sort of helped me propel my career to where it is today. And you talked about some of the other things that I do being charged of ad sales here. It also has given me this passion and understanding about giving back. And so, I have my own foundation, internship foundation, the Lewis Carr Internship Foundation, that Viacom sort of helped me launch and start in 2003 now. And we have been able to get about 178 interns over that particular time. And of that, 46 as of today have gotten full-time jobs in the industry. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of. I started the foundation basically to show how one person can affect diversity and inclusion, just one person. And I wanted to do that as an example so that other people would follow, and that we could sort of, come together and collaborate on how we sort of change the look and the feel and the fabric of our industry. The other thing is I wrote a book a few years ago called Dirty Little Secrets, was about my journey to where I'm at today. And the reason I titled it Dirty Little Secrets, because people see me today and like, oh, you're so smart, you're so successful. But there was a time when that was not so. So I wanted people to understand that it's a journey, and that the impact that many people had on my career throughout that journey. So as I say, and Jonathan, you know this, so let me tell you, right, Jonathan sits on my advisory board for the Blueprint Summit, which is a conference that I do for men. So he knows this. But last year in our conference, I named 19 individuals that had a tremendous impact on who I am today. And as I sort of move throughout life now, it is my mission to sort of pay those people back. It's that debt that I owe to them. And one of them happens to be the late, great Ed Earhart, who was the coach and athletic director at Drake University. This is a person who, a friend of mine by the name of Phil Ferguson, who also went to Drake, went to him. I had become an All-American in high school, had an amazing athletic journey in high school. And then I got injured my senior year, and had been offered scholarships all over the country. And when I got injured, most people didn't feel that I would ever run again. Matter of fact, a lot of doctors that said I would never walk without a limp again. My friend went to Coach Earhart and said, do you have a scholarship left? I have a friend who's All-American and had been offered scholarships from schools all around the country, and he doesn't have a school right now. Coach Earhart that week got on a plane, flew to Chicago, met with reporters at the Chicago Sun-Times and the Chicago Tribune, came to my house unannounced. So, to come to the hood unannounced is a real big deal, all right? Came to my house unannounced, met him, and first thing he said, I must have been living in a cave because I have never heard of you. And I just got all these articles from the Tribune and the Sun-Times, and on your friend's recommendation and on these articles and the reporters I've spoke to, I'm here to offer you a full scholarship. Wow. And in the words of my late mother, we don't know what you would have been without a college education, but we know what you are with one. So it is sort of this passion that is built up in me to pay people like Coach Earhart back what I feel is a debt to helping me become where I am today. And I'm proud to say, and I mentioned Drake in my book, that Drake University was part of that help and support to get me to where I am. So thanks to Drake and everybody there.
Yeah, it's interesting that, when I look at the university, and I always say that turning a passion into a career is one of the hardest things. There's not a linear path in the sense that you undergrad, graduate school, take a test, and then, you can work in that profession. And when I was at Drake, I was kind of a little bit lost in the grocery store as it relates to like what major I was going to do. I come from a family that has a heavy emphasis on science, and I always joke that 8 a.m. chemistry class just never really, synced up with my lifestyle. So I found myself sitting in Mary Edrington, Professor Mary Edrington's office. She was my advisor, and we kind of landed on marketing and started dabbling around with that a little bit. I've always been into music. I've always been a big music fan. Had an older brother, older sister, so I was absorbed to a lot of different genres of music. And but I never at that time thought that that's what I wanted to do with my career. And we packed a car with some friends, and we drove down I-80 to University of Iowa my sophomore year to see George Clinton perform. And it was just an amazing experience. I remember like it was tomorrow, the whole experience of getting the tickets, packing the car with your friends. And then as I'm pulling up to the venue, I was just really struck by the diversity that this artist had brought to the show. I mean, it was different genders, races, even ages, and had the best time of my life. And I said to myself, I really think that this should happen at Drake. It's just kind of one of these wild ideas. I think this should happen at Drake. And I think more importantly, when I look back at it, it was definitely, this would be great to have at Drake, but it would also be great because of the diversity of people that it pulled into the show. And sometimes in entertainment, you tend to lean towards one gender or one race. This was really just a real slice of everything. And my friends thought I was crazy. And we're watching the show. And as Lewis probably knows, because he's seen some George Clinton shows, but the spaceship drops from the lighting rig. There's the smoke. George comes out, and I said, "This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is it." So I don't know how I'm gonna explain it to my parents. They're probably gonna think I want to be an astronaut. But I ended up sneaking backstage, meeting the producers of the show, and because I had built a really great relationship with the faculty and staff at Drake, and I think at that time I was on the student entertainment board. A year later, I produced my first concert at the Knapp Center. I think it was the first concert ever produced at the Knapp Center, which was George Clinton. And that was really the launch of people always ask me how long I've been in music for. And I often include those years because those were the years that, really started it for me. And when I think back to how over my tenure at Drake, I was able to do a multitude of shows that it couldn't have happened anywhere else. If I would have gone to a school in, my native St. Louis or Chicago, I can't guarantee that the university would have supported me and given me the opportunity to do what I did, which was the foundation to my career. Fast forward, I ended up in radio, meeting you in New York, went on to work with the producers and promoters of the largest music festivals in the country, Bonnaroo and Outside Lands in San Francisco. And then I jumped over to run one of the biggest management companies in the world, Red Light, which ironically is the longtime management company for the Dave Matthews Band. In my senior year at Drake, after years of producing great shows, I produced a Dave Matthews show. So it was all these kind of full circle moments. You're part of that full circle moment too, because I found myself sitting there after years running a management company, looking back at my career that was built on the shoulders of mostly people that don't look like me. Very few people that look like me. And I find myself in these rooms with C-level executives having conversations about the entertainment industry. And you look around the room and I'm one of, as a Black executive, one of two, one of three, maybe one of four. And what once was for me, I guess that's the way that it is, or, luck's the residue of hard work. You begin to break down why it is, and some of the systemic barriers to entry that have been put in front of people of color in entertainment. So I started toying around with the idea of starting my own company, and you being my mentor, I found myself in your office in Times Square having a conversation with you about it and saying, I think this is what I want to do. I think the clients I'm managing at the time will come with me. And every now and then you need, I would say you're flying at 30,000 feet, you got the parachute in the hand, you're leaning out the window and you're scared to jump, and I needed a Lewis Carr behind me just to kind of kick the foot and push me out the plane, which is what you did. And that's when I launched Culture Collective. And, we're a management company, but ultimately we have a mission statement around diversity and inclusion. So a lot of things that you just talked about, with helping just, and not only just share your journey and break down the secrets, the codes, the cheat codes of how you get to where we're at, but also putting into place some of the systems that can help break down the barriers. Your internship foundation was one of the very first, internship foundations that I had ever been a part of that was focused around breaking down those barriers. And I think it starts there. I really do believe that the pipeline is very important. And if we can't get, people of color great internships, paid internship.
The thing that I want to say about your story, number one, I think you really sort of highlight the value of vision. You had a vision at Drake that you could see beyond your college experience, and you sort of followed that path. Because when I tried to hire you those couple of times, you talked about you really wanted to manage talent. And knowing talent, like I knew talent at that time in the day, I'm like, why you want to work that hard? Because that's really hard work, as we know. And Jonathan, guys, are being very modest right now. He's managed some of the biggest talent in the industry. I'm going to tell this, Jonathan. You might not want this to be told, but I used to see Jonathan at the airport coming from New York to Chicago when he was working with R. Kelly. All right. And I used to say, wow, baby, how hard is that? And he would just shake his head. He said, I'm trying to get through it. I'm trying to get through it, get to the other side. We also, if you remember this, Jonathan, had this discussion about Anita Baker when you were at the BET Awards. And so a last minute issue where Jonathan really had to use his charm and influence to get Anita Baker to do something that she didn't want to do at that particular time. So he is one of the people in the industry that I admire, because if you're not careful, this industry can change it. It can make you a jerk. It can swell your ego up. It can just make you not a nice person. And he's been in it a long time now and has been the same person that I met years ago. And he's that person today. So I want to say that vision, and as the former late Mayor Hal Washington would say, stick-to-itism, which is not a word, but I just like the way it sounds. He's had the stick-to-itism to hang in there, and it has not changed who he is at the core. So I want to salute you and thank you for that. And we all in the industry have benefited from it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And BET, interesting enough, when I was running Red Light management, which the majority of the clients at Red Light don't look like me. So naturally, when clients would come to the table, and as managers, we do a lot of the execution around facilitating award show performances, tours. It's more the back office activity, but oftentimes we all hold our breath to hope that a talent shows up. Sometimes there's challenges, as Lewis mentioned. But for me, having the ability to work with BET and know that I'm across the table from a group of really great executives that look like me is comforting. And BET's been a great partner to me. They've always been very, very supportive, along with the production team. But going back to Anita Baker, I think that was one of the things where Lewis said, "I know we're friends, but you need to make sure this happens." And I said, "I got it. I know it'll happen." So going back to like life lessons, because that's also another thing that I've always appreciated about you, is that we work really hard. We push ourselves to stay in a high performance zone, but at the same time, we have lives, right? And we have family. And I think that I'm thinking back to seeing you talk at a conference I was at, and you sharing some stories about your childhood and your close relationship with your mother. And it still sticks with me today, that story. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, because I think that, you read about Lewis and you read about all the things that he's done, but ultimately, I think I go back to that experience, the relationship with your mother. And I think I find that nurturing part in you. I feel like that's probably where it started.
Well, yeah, I was very, very close to my mother. She was a huge supporter of everything I wanted to do. But the most important thing, and I write about people who I've named vision makers. As a kid, most of the time you're just trying to have fun and you just see what's in front of you. My mother had vision that she wanted me to have a better life than what she had. And she challenged me on that all the time. I always say, looking back, she was way before her time. Even putting me in a car and taking me to better neighborhoods and say, it's up to you whether you want to live like we live now or you want to live like this. And so she was always trying to help create a bigger vision for me than I saw for myself. And in my book, I tell this story. There were two things that sort of happened to let me know that success and growth was on me. One was when I was in high school and a coach asked me, did I want to be good or did I want to be great? I never knew that option was up to me. I thought life sort of would decide that for me. I never knew that, I had to do some key things and be intentional about it to be beyond good and to be great. And my mother, I never forget this, the night Jonathan, we broke the national mile relay record, and I called my mother. We won the city championship, and I called her from a payphone. Just shows how long ago that was. And I told her, and she said, "Oh, very, very, very nice, son. Very happy for you. Is that like winning the state championship?" I'm like, "No, we ain't talking about that right now. I'm talking about we just won city and I just broke a national record." And she's asked me, "Do you think you could do any better?" And it was just like silence. Like, I'm trying to be happy about this right now, and you're challenging me by raising the bar. And I said, "Probably." And she said, "When you get home, let's talk about that." So her vision was always to sort of help me get to that next level. And everything I did, she challenged me. Even when I got bad grades, she never got on me about the bad grades. She would just say, "Is that the best you could do?" And 99% of the time, the answer was no, I could do better. And her thing would be to me, "Why are you letting yourself down like that?" So "You're not letting me down, you're letting yourself down, because you have the potential to be great. And anything less than that is you're cutting yourself short." So she was a tremendous influence in my life there. And there were so many other people who were tremendous influences and people at Drake. The voice of the Drake Relays, Tim Duncan, was one of those people who consistently challenged me. Was I giving my best and was I doing my best?
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about my last time I was in your office in New York. What does it say on your on the glass of the office?
Growth.
The message. What's
Yeah,
that?
growth. And most people
Growth.
think because I'm in charge of the company's revenue, that's what that means. That's just part of it.
It's implied.
It's part of it. Now, the funny thing about it, that's been up in my office for over a year. And Jonathan is only the third person who's personally asked me about it. They usually ask my assistant. But growth is not just about the revenue that I'm in charge of. It's also about personal growth as a person. We call it personal maturity. You want to be at a better place every year, every 6 months than you were previously. and that's sort of how I live my life. I would probably say it started as an athlete. One of the goals I have right now is the older I get to be in better shape than I was when I was in college. As my friends tell me, Louis, that's a fantasy. That's not a goal. You're not going to be in that type of shape. But I work hard at it. All right, and whether it's through diet, whether it's through exercise, and in my career, I've had tremendous personal growth. I don't know, Jonathan, if you've heard the story that floats around of Viacom at BET that I fired 10 people at one time, all in the same day. And everybody was just freaking out. Louis, unscheduled firing. So it wasn't downsizing. It was before I had personal growth, it was get out. And that's not good. So anybody listening, do not repeat that. All right. So I fired these 10 people, told them to get out. Everybody from HR to my bosses came and talked to me like, Louis, what happened? Did you have to do it that way? And I was determined that was the only way to do it. And they got me a personal coach, spent a lot of money, and I give them credit on a personal coach. And when the personal coach came in the first meeting we had, he said, I want to level set and understand what I'm working with. Did you fire 10 people unscheduled all at one time in one day? Yeah, I did. And as you look back, do you think you did anything? No, I didn't do anything wrong. And he looked at me and said, okay, I know what I'm working with. All right, this is going to be a long, hard journey. So growth is that thing that I always sort of shoot for and try to be an example for people, whether it is managing anger, whether it's managing process, whether it's managing systems, whether it's managing your own personal behavior. That's what that word is all about. And that's what I think everybody should be sort of shooting for, no matter what age you are, is some type of growth in your life.
Yeah, I talk about when I'm thinking about my career. I always talk about comfort zone, which is very vast, and I talk about danger zone, which is also very vast. And then in the middle, you have this razor thin margin that's high performance, and it's just like, how can we stay in that high performance zone? And I think that's what growth gets produced out of that high performance zone. When you're focused, you're not doing things that are dangerous. And if you you teeter totter, sometimes you lean a little this way, sometimes you lean a little into comfort. I for whatever reason always kind of think I'm in this comfort thing, and I've got to push myself to evolve. But I'm with you on the growth thing, and it's also something with my team that I always talk about. If you're doing the same thing, career wise, for more than a certain amount of time, then there's no growth. So I'm always excited to, teams that I've worked around, I look at them as almost like my own alumni. And I think that you probably think the same. I actually know I'm still close to some of the executives that worked for you when we first met in the early 2000s, and they have now gone on to do great things, but they all graduated essentially from the School of Lewis. It sounds like 10 of them graduated a little earlier than they probably planned on graduating, but ultimately they probably learned a lot.
Well, I say it's learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's all part of that foundation of growth. As you know, I'm doing a lot of things now that, I'm uncomfortable with. When I just did my men's summit, someone said, Louis, you did so well in the interviews of people. It's almost like you have a journalism degree. I do. I do. I just never used it. Okay, but I do.
Yeah, that was, and I watched some of those. So for everyone that's watching, Lewis produces this men's summit, which I'm on the board of. It happens in Chicago every year. It's great. Beautifully shot or beautifully presented. And this year, no different than the Let's Do Lunch, everything's forced digitally. So Lewis really became, probably more than any other year, the real linchpin of the event, and was able to pull in some great talent, including Dwayne Wade, which I know you've been working on for a while, but that was a great interview that you did with D Wade.
Thank you.
How have you guys been navigating the pandemic? with your team, not being able to sit into a conference room with everybody and have conversations and connect with people on a level?
I say this very quietly and humbly. We have had an amazing year, unbelievable. I mean, we all sort of whisper about our success because it's just not the environment to speak about it too loudly. And I think it's because we were always positioned and ready from a process standpoint for tough times. No one ever could say they predicted COVID, but we always had a plan in place in case something like this happened. So we were notified on March 11th that we would be leaving the offices on March 13th, and with no sort of date of when we would return. We went into what we call a 2-minute drill. First of all, trying to make sure we had all of the sort of hardware to work from home that we needed. So you saw people gathering computers, and those who didn't have good ones, we got new ones, and printers, and everything else that we needed in place in basically a 48-hour period. That 13th, we had a conference call to sort of see where the gaps were in our process and systems that we needed to correct immediately. We did that within another 48-hour period. We made sure that we had all of our technical support ready and available on a 24-hour basis. So we had people taking shifts on how they were supporting us and serving us. We clearly found out that, some people were at home and didn't have good internet. They needed faster internet speeds. We quickly approved that. We used our brand and our brand clout to be able to get to a lot of the providers who are our partners anyway, whether they were Comcast or Time Warner, in order to get people's internet up and reliable as quickly as possible. And we had the expertise and know-how in my management team to be able to serve our clients, but also serve our employees in a very supportive way quickly. So doing all of that within probably 2 weeks max, we were fully loaded, up and running, and we were able to position the brand and our consumers in a way that people sort of really thought about us in a very, very special way. And we sort of termed it to recognize that people are hurting right now, to understand what we can do to be supportive of them, and number 3, to care. And on the care part, BET raised $18 million in the first 45 days of what we're calling known COVID, to be distributed through the Red Cross to Black and Brown communities over the country. And that was the first thing on our list. Not, how we're going to do with the business, how are we going to serve our consumers in a very special way in a time where COVID plus the underlying conditions were taking out too many Black and Brown people. And how do we sort of address that need? We produce specials with CBS on the education of COVID-19 and with underlying conditions like heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and how it would affect African Americans and people of brown descent. So we had a lot to do, and I can say we've been rewarded handsomely for doing all of that, because we're having one of our best years ever.
Yeah, I would say that, and also, I'm looking at the Oscars that recently aired, and then the Grammys. I think they honestly took a page from your team on how you've been able to produce programming and still connect with consumers. The BET Awards this year, I've been to almost every BET Awards, in recent memory. It was one of the best. that I've seen, and also the way your team was able to take advertisers and get them to spend their dollars in a way that drove impact. So one of my artists is Luke James, and we worked with your team on producing a spot with Doritos, a social impact spot, and it pays. When you look at the impact that has on the community, it means a lot. And so your team's done a great job, just a great job. And there's a lot more work to do. Ultimately, we're not quite through this yet. And my industry has been turned upside down. I'll never forget it. It was a Thursday before the world really changed over, and we had artists in Asia, we had artists in New York, we had art all over the world, and we're sitting there trying to coordinate how to get people back home safely without really knowing what's going on. And then, like many of you that are on the Zoom today, trying to figure out how to get kids out of school and this and that. And somebody brought up a really good point to me the other day that it's almost like in a way we're this is very difficult, but we're birthing something new in society, and it's extremely difficult, something that nobody's dealt with that's alive today, but we have a chance to come out on the back end of this better than when we entered, and I think the work that you're doing contributes a lot to that, so I thank you. We have about 15 or so minutes, 20 minutes left. I don't know if Andy, do you want to move to some questions from the audience?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, both are great to hear from. And I've gotten several private messages from people saying how much they're enjoying this conversation and your realism about your challenges and successes. Lewis, here's an easy one for you. Someone had messaged me that they understand BET acquired Soul Train a while back. And they said they grew up watching Soul Train, an amazing show. Performances were incredible, and the singers and dancers' style was unprecedented at the time. Will this show come back in their lifetime?
The weekly show, we're not sure. We've toyed around with a lot of different concepts. Soul Train originally, it was such a special thing at that particular time, highlighting music and dance. And, one of the things that we sort of go back and forth with, where, you can consume music so many different platforms and different places today. Should it just be strictly a dance show and focus on dance, or do we try to do sort of a reboot of what you saw in the past? We will be doing the Soul Train Awards on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So right now, that's what we're just currently doing in regards to Soul Train. But to give you an example of how relationships work, Kennard Gibbs, who Jonathan Azu knows and who works for me now, he owns Soul Train, and he was came to me to get some advice on how he should position a brand and market the brand. And I tease him now. I said, you came in to get advice, and next thing I know, we end up taking the show and buying it from you. All right. So how does that work? I don't know who's the winner of it, me or you. So that just shows again, how relationships work.
Thank you,
yeah,
Lewis.
I would vote for the hybrid dance and performance. Cool and the Gang was another one of the many clients that we worked with at Red Light when I was GM there, and I still love watching their performances on their old performances on Soul Train, along with all the other stuff. So that hybrid, but what an iconic brand! Just iconic.
Thanks, Lewis. Jonathan, I'll toss this one to you. What do you think? We talked about this a little bit last night. We were prepping. What is the future of live performance?
Well, that's a great question. I think the short-term future of live performance will be, around the pandemic, I think will be marginalized audiences, mitigated audiences. So you're talking maybe 25 to 50%, 2 shows a night. One of the challenges that we have in our industry is that the way that the structure is set up, when you go out to see a concert at a venue, you see a lot of production on stage, you see lights and all sorts of stuff. And a lot of times that production, the cost of the production are put into the overall bottom line deal structure of the show. and the promoter, who's the person that paid for the talent to come in, sharing those expenses with the artist. A lot of these promoters are hurting really, really bad, and they've literally gone to zero on revenue, and won't return till, my guess, late next year. So therefore, the artist would be responsible for a lot of those costs to make the show look great. And I think because of that, you're going to see smaller footprints on stage. You'll see smaller, where you maybe would see 7 people plus a lot of other stuff on stage. You maybe will see 4 people and just a few things on stage. So it'll be interesting. I think that in the interim, obviously everybody's getting online and trying to just keep engaged with their fans. But the one thing I can guarantee you, and I think Lewis would agree with this, is that if we can get through this virus in 2021, 2022 will be the biggest year in music. It will be the absolute biggest year in music. If you used to go see 5 shows a year, you'll probably see 15. So, we just got to get to that point, and everyone's got to be able to lower your expenses and hunker in, and those that are still standing will really benefit from it.
Yes, one of the things we do know that there is tremendous pent-up demand, tremendous, whether it's in regards to music or just going to the movie theater. We've just finished some recent proprietary focus groups and insights, and the demand is unbelievable. That's why we think we're seeing just a lot of people, as we said, they just don't want to behave themselves at this particular time, because the demand is just so great. People want to get back to what they call a normal life. And so we know that whether it is music, whether it is movies, or whether it is sports, we all see on social media these people breaking out of these places and just running in the streets. That's how it's going to be for concerts and entertainment.
I think we can all hope for that return to normalcy for sure. We will toss this one to Lewis. Lewis, one of our professors asked, growth is a necessary but scary concept. How can we encourage young adults, including current college students, to approach periods of growth in courage, and with courage and yes, even excitement?
Well, I think you have to sort of be that term that I used earlier, a vision maker, to sort of paint the vision for people of the future. Because a lot of people are probably like me, they couldn't see it until somebody sort of really painted the picture for them. And I think those professors and administrators who have had a journey need to sort of, paint that picture and explain that journey to people. I think once you do that, people will be a little less scared to sort of move out of their comfort zone, because they'll know that it is necessary to get the reward. We've just got to show people what the reward looks like and what the path is to that. But I can tell people it's an exciting journey. It's just like a roller coaster. And most people love to go to amusement parks. I just got on the board of a public board of an amusement park company, Cedar Fair. And life is just like that roller coaster. It is sort of scary going down, but so excited when you're going up. And I think if you sort of paint that view for young people about this is what the future looks like, these are what the opportunities are, they will understand that that period of time that you go through with uncertainty is necessary to get to the other side.
Great, Lewis, thank you very much. Jonathan, we had a senior on that runs a music video production company for artists of color in and around Des Moines. Before knowing about Jonathan and Culture Co., the student was using your ideas as a template. How do you quantify success beyond just revenue streams?
For me, this chapter of my life, it's about, having an impact on people. I've really taken the steps to inspire the team that I work around. And it's everything from some of my senior folks on down to the interns. The interns are always blown away by how much time I spend with them, just investing in them, giving them insights, and then really kind of breaking down the complexity of the industry. Because to me, it's always been important with these internships to when you're doing an internship, sometimes you are doing some stuff that's somewhat thankless, but ultimately there always needs to be a learning point to it. If you're working on a spreadsheet, why are you working on that spreadsheet? What's it for? If you're going down to the lobby to meet somebody to bring them up to the office, tell them who that person is, what they do, why you're meeting with them. Just make those connections. And I think for me, having that sort of investment is the things that I think about that are, I always say I started Culture Collective for reasons bigger than music. Music's why we're here, but the company was started for reasons so much bigger than that. And those are examples of why.
Another question, kind of building on that a little bit, and for both of you. So Jonathan, if you want to start, and then Lewis after you. Has the Black Lives Matter movement impacted internship programs and efforts to diversify the entertainment industry? If how? I know you're both really passionate about it and the work that you do. Have you seen a shift at all with the events of this summer?
I'll speak a little bit to that. I mean, one thing it's really fascinating. So when I started the company, I was very loud in my walk, if you will, very proud of my walk of why I was starting it. And I don't want to say I got resistance, but there was definitely some aspect of I don't feel that the industry is broken as it relates to diversity and inclusion. And one of the more interesting things about this year was with the killing of George Floyd and the conversation around race in America and then race in entertainment got pushed from, back page of the newspaper on up to the front. I found myself in the middle of the conversation and I've watched my industry rise to the occasion of having the conversation and then make a lot of commitments. And those commitments have been to put their best foot forward in diversifying their workplace, clearing pipelines, breaking down barriers, also going back to pre-existing agreements with talent from the 60s and 70s, if not before, where the agreements were very predatory, and restructuring those. The thing I think about though a lot is that I don't know what the statistic is, but if unemployment in the United States is 1 in 10 or whatnot, I mean it's much greater in music because of what we're going through. So the industry is making all these commitments to hire and diversify and do all these things, but at the same time, from a revenue standpoint, we're down. So we're doing more laying off and hiring. So I think about 2022 being the biggest year in music, but I also think about will companies stick to what they promised and be held accountable for what they promised in 2020 as it relates to diversity and inclusion. We're going to be, Culture Collective is going to be launching a platform. This is the first time I'm talking about this, but we're going to be launching a platform that we've been working on to connect unemployed people of color in entertainment with hiring managers. We've been working on a platform to be able to dynamically do that because I've seen a lot of, in my conversations with HR managers at various companies, one of the things that has always come up is that we want to diversify, but people don't apply. Diverse applicants don't apply. And I talk a lot about recruitment and the need for hiring managers to actually go out there and actively recruit people of color versus waiting for people of color to apply to the job and then getting into an interview. It can work the other way around. And with unemployment being so high, it's going to be important for hiring managers to be able to reach out to people that are of color and unemployed, who are great, who just got caught up in this pandemic and are going to need work.
I think that the hashtag BLM movement has been amazing for our country. Young people of all colors have put an issue on the front line and in the face of America. So I applaud what I call young people being our frontline workers. I think it is up to people like me and Jonathan now to get the baton and carry it to the next level, because we have the access to the C-suites and to the power brokers to sort of make a difference. I just had a meeting this morning with my team as we sort of close out 2020, and we'll be going into 21, which includes MLK weekend, it includes Black History Month, it includes Women's History Month, that our brand has to be on the front line of educating, motivating, and inspiring people to grow. And that means you've made all these promises, you say you are aware, you say you recognize. Now we need to see action as we go into 21. What is that action? We need to see more financial support. We need to see more jobs. We need to see more engagement. We need to see more influence and impact in all aspects of that movement. So I think it has made a difference. I think where we should see it should be in the next 4 to 5 months to see what people do as they get new budgets, as they've got a new administration. So there's work for all of us to do, and I think we just have to execute on that.
And for just to build on that, for these companies, it needs to be tied to comp. Diversity and inclusion should be tied to compensation. I'm not convinced that a C-level executive who's been in the industry for decades and has never invested in diversity and inclusion will wake up in 2021 and say, okay, I'm now ready to put these into place. But if you tie it to comp, that will ensure that it will happen. If you actually say, these are the numbers that we're trying to get to at our company, if we don't get there, my pocket's going to be hurt, you'll see some change.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. We got about 5 minutes left. So if you're okay, we'll ask you a few more questions while we can get them in.
Yeah.
Lewis, if you remember, someone said you'd shared a story at the Drake Black Alumni Reunion a number of years ago regarding your track shoes. Do you remember that story? Does that ring a bell at all?
Regarding my
track shoes, that there was a story that you told about your track shoes, and they just wondered if you remembered the story and if you could share it with the group if you did.
I know I gave a lot of them away, and I gave them away to friends and people who needed them because I knew that Drake could afford to buy me some more. And when I would see my friends in bad shoes, I would give them to them and then tell Coach Earhart, somebody stole mine or I lost them. So I don't know if that's the story. It's not good to tell it Drake, but that may be the story they're talking about. But I always had this sort of giving heart. And I was like, oh, Drake got enough money. They can afford to buy me a new pair. And I would get away until Coach Earhart said, no, wait a minute, this is a problem. You need new shoes every weekend. There's something going on here.
But that is a story. Thank you for sharing that. Jonathan, I had 2 questions that were kind of similar. The group's recognizing, at a young age, you've achieved a lot of success. Kind of what is next? And with that, do you feel a pressure to continue to have that same success as you move throughout your career?
Yeah, I think for me, the fact that I'm even though I've had success, I've been building companies for other people, and now I've had an opportunity to start my own company. And I've been an operator in the past, but it's so much different when it's yours. It really is. And so I'm learning a tremendous amount being an entrepreneur. Being the one that sweeps up the office on up to having the high level conversations with talent about the blueprint of their career. But I think about the future, for me, continue to work with great talent. I look at my intersection. My intersection is media, with radio, live events, with my time at Superfly around Bonnaroo and Outside Lands, executive management. When I was a general manager at Red Light, we had 250 artists, and now I'm on my own, and we're a smaller shop, and everything in business starts small essentially, and then you grow it from there. But the thing that I'm excited about is using that intersection to work with everyone that I've crossed paths with in my career and pulling on those levers. When I talked about the philanthropic website that we're going to be launching, Diversity in Music, to help connect HR executives and people of color that are out of work, that was really born out of an idea that I had. But the realization came of it because of a I was in conversation with a tech development company that I had done work with years ago about diversity and inclusion. They said, "Hey, we would love to jump on board and help you bring that idea to life." There's a PR company that came on board that I worked with years ago when I was in live events that came on board and said, "We would love to be the PR company to represent that." So kind of leaning on all those relationships to build out, some of the visions that we have, I think is the future. And then hopefully, with Lewis, we got to figure out, I'm having a lot of fun working on the boards and all that good stuff, but maybe Lewis and I can come together and create something as well.
Jonathan, I'll work for you any day. It's just got to be the right comp, baby. It's just got to be.
I definitely can't afford you, but I'll buy you as many lunch and dinners as you want.
Lewis, I'll toss one more to Lewis, and then Jonathan will come back. You can think about this, Jonathan. Your last question is going to be, someone asked what bands they should be listening to or getting excited about. So think about that for a second, Jonathan. Lewis, you've obviously just done a lot. And when I talked to Jonathan last night, he just said all the other stuff you've got going on now, more advisory boards you're joining, philanthropic work, Blueprint Men's Summit. How do you define success, Lewis?
The impact and the influence that you have beyond yourself and your own personal family. I think we live in a world today that is in such need of so many things that the word success has to be defined about how you're pouring, how you're impacting other people. And I don't care if you're in business, if you're in sports, if you're in music, entertainment, whatever the case may be. We all have to look for opportunities to impact and influence people in multiple ways that are beyond our immediate circle. So that's what I try to do. That's what I encourage other people to do. It's about impact. And as I tell people, the best feeling you can have is to impact somebody that you don't know. It's an amazing, amazing feeling.
And Jonathan, if you want to add yours as well, then I do want you to tell us a couple bands you're excited about, so we all can be hip and cool.
I mean, the impact thing is I think the most important. Just like what Lewis said, I think ultimately, sometimes when I think back to my career and I think about the moments in which I was impacted by somebody that either saw something in me that I didn't see at the time, or just said something to me and it sat with me and I carried it forward. And then I applied it in my career. We often don't think about, as we're walking through our lives and doing what we do, that's what's happening. And even in the case of Lewis, like I think you talk about growth. I mean, it was last year I was in your office and I happened to walk by and I see growth and I still remember it. I still remember it today, and I've used it as a tool, in my practice. So I want to continue to impact people. I love when young people especially walk up to me and say, "Hey, I saw you at this," or, "I read about this and that inspired me to do something great." And sometimes we don't always realize it because we don't see it, the manifestation of the impact that we have on people, but it's definitely there. And as far as talent, I live in this R&B soul space. We just put out an album from an artist that I've worked with for a bit. His name is Cory Henry. And I think Cory Henry is the next Herbie Hancock. He's the next Stevie Wonder. I signed him because I found myself sitting at home on YouTube watching videos of him play, including a video. If you type in Cory Henry child or kid, you'll see a video of him at the age of 3 in the church. Doesn't have the manual dexterity to count with his fingers when he's counting off the song, but then he just starts playing the organ, and it'll blow your mind. So I was like, I have to work with him. And we've had a great couple years, and we just put out an album out, Something to Say, a week ago, which is really, really exciting. And I'm very excited about his career. For me, I love songs, but no different than going back to Drake. The live performance is everything to me, how it comes to life on stage. So an artist like Cory Henry, who's just does magicianry with his instrumentation, is one of the artists I'm most excited about.
I hope you enjoyed this segment of Front Row at Drake. Please make sure to mark your calendars and tune in for another episode next Thursday at 7 p.m. and invite your family and friends to join. Have a great night.